excited to be presenting in this forum, and thanks a lot for hosting this online conference. So let me just quickly pull up my screen and jump right into it since we are running slightly late on the schedule. Uh, I hope you guys can see my screen. Cool. Let me go into the present mode. Awesome. So yeah, I hope you guys are able to see my screen. Shreya and Pradeep, if there is any issues, just let me know and I can join again. So cool. I'm going to talk about AI for everyday things. The high-level agenda items that I'm going to cover here is, in general, what is AI? Brief introduction about that. How is AI being used for everyday things? And lastly, I'm going to talk about what is the future like with AI. This is sort of my favorite part in the presentation. So I'm going to be spending probably like 8 to 10 minutes on that part. Cool. Just to set some in this session, I'm trying to give you an overview about how AI is changing the world today. So give you a lot of examples on how people are using AI across the world. And also, I'm going to try to inspire you in general to use to kind of solve day-to-day problems using AI, given that this is sort of a budding developer community. What I'm not trying to do in this session is this is not a hands-on session of machine learning, so I'm not going to go into any TensorFlow or any machine learning code. We have a whole session dedicated tomorrow under the name of Getting Started with Machine Learning by Sandeep Giri. So if you are interested on getting started with that, please attend that session tomorrow. All right, sounds good. So let's jump into it. So what is AI? I wanted to have this slide and this section specifically because I talk to a lot of people regarding AI, and people are usually super confused about what is AI. They see movies and they are usually scared that AI is a bad thing, and some people don't know if it is like a technology, it is like software, what exactly it is. So let me just take a step back and explain in layman terms what AI exactly is. So AI is basically a very simple science, which is part of computer science, that aims towards making artificial things more intelligent. So AI is not new in our world. We've been interacting with artificially intelligent things from decades. So just to give you an example, when you set your temperature on your air conditioning using your remotes, that's sort of an artificially intelligent machine, because the kind of things that it sort of takes decision on its own. So you said that, hey, I want the temperature in the room to be 21 degrees Celsius. So it continues cooling the temperature of the room until the temperature becomes 21, and at that time it takes a decision and stops. So it's a smarter machine than kind of manually turning off and on an air conditioner, and it is slightly intelligent. It's not super intelligent, but it's slightly intelligent. Similarly, if you've played this in your first 10 years of your life, I used to play chess a lot. There was a computer mode here, and the way it used to operate was there was a decision tree. Like if the chessboard pieces are in so and so position, the computer should play so and so a next move. So it was all very decision tree based, and somebody had manually coded the rules. But nevertheless, it was to make that system intelligent. So we've had AI for like last few decades. Now you might ask, like, why is it such a big deal at this point of time? So bear with me for like next 2 minutes while I explain to you this example of temperature setting. So let's take an example of how do you set the temperatures at your house right now. Let's say you get up at 7 a.m., you set the temperature to 25 degrees Celsius from, let's say it was 22 degrees Celsius. From 9 to 5, you turn it off because you're at work. And then in the evening when you watch television, you like it at 24 degrees. And then finally, when you go to sleep, you like it slightly cooler and you keep it at 22 degrees Celsius. So the way you can do it right now is you can either use the remote and turn turn the temperature to the relevant temperature setting every single time. There are some rule-based thermostats which allow you to set the temperature on a daily basis, like 7 a.m. this, 9 a.m. this, and so on. But what if we had a system that can analyze what you do on a daily basis and automatically learns what temperature to keep at what point of time? So essentially, you are going from setting manual rules about what the temperature of the room should be to an automated decision and actioning system where it kind of understands how you like your temperature throughout the day and takes automated action, which is basically turning the temperature during the day. There is a product called Nest thermostats, if you might have heard about it, which does exactly that. It tries to understand what your patterns are during, let's say, first 5 days when you start using it. And from the 6th day, it starts adapting itself for these patterns. The number of days is just an example. I don't know the exact number of days, but it basically tries to understand your patterns in previous days and sets the temperature accordingly over the next few days. So this is sort of the power of AI. Like, it can understand the previous things and predict the future things, and you do not need to set rules for those. So now again, coming back to the question, why is it such a big deal now? So AI has become such a big deal in last 4, 5, 6 years, primarily because of a technique called machine learning. So machine learning is basically the same thing that I talked about, that the machine or the model that we are trying to build basically analyzes all the data from past few days. And based on that, it tries to predict what should be the future instance. To make my point slightly more clear, let's take another example. So let's say if I give you some data about the kind of movies I like. So I've listed here Avengers, Spider-Man, Titanic, Shutter Island, and Iron Man. And correspondingly, I give you that I like Avengers, Spider-Man, and Iron Man, and I don't like Titanic and Shutter Island. Now, if I were to ask you, based on this data, would I like Superman more or would I like Fight Club more? I think for a human, it's not very difficult to understand or predict that since I like Avengers, Spider-Man, and Iron Man, and all of them are superhero movies, so I would probably like Superman as well. And since Titanic and Shutter Island are drama movies, I would probably not like Fight Club as much. So machine learning essentially tries to do the same thing. It takes a lot of data, and based on that, it tries to predict which of the given options might I like or dislike. Now again, the question is why has it become such a big deal now, like in last 5 years? So two major reasons for that is, one, machine learning algorithms at the end of the day are complicated mathematical equations. And to solve these equations, we need a huge amount of compute power. So basically flops, floating point operations per minute. So we did not have huge amounts of computing power until I would probably say like 2009, 2010, when the GPU industry really started picking up. And we should probably thank the gaming industry for that. So the GPU industry kind of picked up, and we got all the computation needed, and hence we started training more complicated machine learning models, which can give like super accurate results. The second thing that played a big role here was explosion of data. So you may have heard of the term big data a lot in last few years. Big data is essentially like a lot of data being collected through online systems. So a lot of data plus a lot of compute power and the machine learning algorithms, the mathematical equations, these sort of came together really well in last 5 to 6 years. And that is why we are seeing so much advances in machine learning and AI in last like 6 to 7 years. So just to highlight, a lot of people get confused between what is ML, what is AI, how are they related, or how are they different from each other. So in layman terms, ML is a way to power AI. So ML is a technique that we use to create artificial intelligence. And within machine learning, there is a very specific domain called deep learning, which is basically it's sort of aligned to how our brain thinks. I'm not going to get into too much detail into deep learning. I think I'll just confuse you here. So just know that deep learning is one of the ways through which one of the techniques within machine learning that we use to generate artificial intelligence. All right. Real quick. So what are the subfields within AI that are hot right now? The first one is computer vision. So basically you get an image or you get a video, and corresponding to that image, we tell you like what that image is about. So this image is about dogs. So computer algorithm will basically predict that this image is of a dog. The other main area is language understanding. So if I have to predict sentiment of, let's say, a review that a person wrote on Google Map or on Yelp, for example, there are models that can predict for a message like, I hate that restaurant, that the sentiment is negative. So that falls under the category of language understanding. The third major category is speech recognition. So when somebody speaks, these get recorded as waveforms. And then from these waveforms, can we generate a text, like a transcribed text of what exactly is the user talking about? The fourth one is something that we call as recommendation systems. The example that I gave about the movies, like would I like Superman or Fight Club based on my previous history, that kind of falls in the bucket of recommendation systems. So you recommend something to the users. It can be movies, it can be apps on Play Store or iOS Store, it could be videos on YouTube, and so on. There are several other fields within AI. I'm not going to cover all of them, but I think you get a sense of what are the major things. And I'm going to talk about mostly examples in this field to keep things more relevant. All right. So if there is one single point that I can make from the last few slides, it is that AI is a field in computer science that enables machines to make predictions. Just remember this with respect to AI. What exactly we are trying to do is make artificial things more intelligent and enable them to make the predictions and decisions using machine learning. All right, so let's jump into the second part of the presentation, which is AI for everyday things. So here I'm going to primarily talk about how people are using AI in day-to-day life and how it is transforming things. Let's start with a field that we don't spend a lot of time probably in, being heavily involved in the technological community, but I really love this example, and that's why I want to start with this. So here you see a picture of two farmers, husband and wife, and their son at the back. These farmers are cucumber farmers. And one of the things that they have to do after the harvest is they have to sort the cucumbers in different buckets. So the cucumbers are in different formats, like M, 2M, 3L, and so on. So they have like different varieties of cucumbers. And after the harvest, they have to sort like thousands and thousands of these cucumbers. So what their son did was basically train a computer vision algorithm to sort these cucumbers. So I'm going to play the video here, and I'm going to walk through what exactly is happening here. So you can see here that on this side, where he keeps the cucumbers, there is a camera on the top. From this camera, it basically identifies what type of cucumber is it. Does it fall in B bucket or A bucket or L2L bucket, for example. And he has a small assembly line that basically sorts these cucumbers. Very simple thing that he has done, probably can be done in less than let's say $35,000-$40,000. But just imagine 35,000-40,000 rupees. Just imagine the amount of effort it can save for his parents. So this is like one of the super cool demos that I've seen of machine learning models. Other places where we see machine learning making a huge impact in farming is weed control. As you can imagine, identifying weeds is sort of a big problem and time-taking problem for the farmers. So there are a lot of computer vision algorithms that a company called Blue River Tech has created. They have these huge trucks which have like cameras within them, and in real time the cameras basically see that, okay, this is a plant. They identify whether it is a crop or a weed, and if it is a weed, they'll just spray the pesticide on top of that. So super impactful, and this technology is sort of growing across the world. Cool. Let's move on to another domain. So the second one that I want to talk about is travel and transportation. So you probably are aware of self-driving cars. There's a company called Waymo, which is an alphabet company, which launched the first self-driving taxis in the world. And here I'm going to just show you like a quick video on how the Waymo cars operate. So this thing is super cool. Like it definitely freaks people out because there is nobody at the driving wheel, and when you see that for the first time, you're like, "Holy crap!" Like, how will this work? But these kinds of technologies are advancing significantly. Especially, I see a lot of these self-driving cars and companies in Silicon Valley here. And the way they build these models are basically a hybrid of advanced computer vision. So they have a lot of sensors and cameras across the car. And they also use some speech technology to understand like if somebody's honking or if there is like some sort of unusual noise coming in from the car or road, etc. And then they kind of decide what the car should be doing in the next instance. The way this is done is through a technique called reinforcement learning, which I'm not going to talk about. If you're interested, feel free to go and check out how reinforcement learning, what exactly it is. Cool. This is also like super exciting example about how AI is sort of helping us in our day-to-day basis. Here, Google Maps has launched a feature here called parking difficulty. So if you see here, you see like a small P in a red circle here. This basically highlights that where this person is trying to navigate to, the parking is super limited in that area. If the parking is readily available, this P will be green, and if it is moderately available, I think it is blue or orange or something like that. And this is parking is a huge pain in cities like San Francisco, where like it's a small city and parking is like super expensive and also not abundant parking. So the Maps team basically used a lot of data around navigation to figure out how can we, how can we predict the parking difficulty of an area. So what they did is they basically evaluated how long does a person take when he or she is in that particular area before they end up into the parking garage. So here is a trajectory of a person who starts from this point on the right, and then goes around all the way here, and finally ends up parking here. So you can imagine, like, based on the navigation data, you can see like the time, the distance, the area converted. It basically predicts that parking finding is super difficult here, and based on that, it predicts the parking difficulty. Again, super cool use of machine learning and AI here. The next area or the industry that I want to talk about is communications. So you may have probably seen some of these smart replies in apps or in emails. These are basically small chips that you see within the conversation that help you easily respond to conversation. They basically take the context of the previous messages into account, and based on that, predict what might be potential responses that you may send to the sender. So this is at the core of natural language processing and natural language understanding, and super useful feature in apps like LinkedIn, Gmail, Android messages, and so on. The next one is this is a startup here, I think probably in Silicon Valley, if I'm not wrong, called Voicea. And they are basically helping businesses take meeting notes. This is one of the things that I really, really don't like, but it's very important to keep track of things and know who is assigned what sort of action items and make progress for the project. So the app, what it basically does is it joins your meeting and listens to what is being said, uses speech recognition to transcribe whatever is said, and based on that it then does a bunch of natural language understanding stuff, such as it identifies that, hey, this particular AI was given to Gaurav, or this AI was given to Henry, and then basically help you navigate the meeting and beyond that. So it's a very cool technology, and you can check it out if you have a startup, or if you want to ever run a startup without taking meeting notes. This might be super cool. Okay, the next area that I want to talk about is retail and payments. So there are a lot of object detection APIs available these days. What they essentially do is you click a picture of an object you are interested in. In this case, you're probably interested in the trouser or the shoe. So you can tap on the shoe here. Now what it does is it tries to identify, let's say within Amazon carousel, here are the 100,000 shoes that Amazon sells. After taking the picture of this shoe, it tries to predict which of these 100,000 shoes would these be. Once it identifies with certain probability that, okay, this is probably the 999th shoe there, it shows you the details about that shoe, and if you're interested, you can just order. So this is going to be the future of shopping. Next time you see those like cool sneakers you like or cool t-shirt you like, you don't have to like go to Target or Reliance and then sort of try to find those things. You can just use object detection, computer vision, and get those things directly online. The next one in retail and payments is fraud detection for online payments. So this is a huge industry overall across the world. Before I joined Google AI, I used to work with Google Payments as fraud detection system. And essentially what we did was we tried to understand the behavior of the user and the credit card transaction, like the transaction history of the user, and predict whether it was fraud or not fraud. This is one of the sort of very big industries right now, and I don't think it's going to go anywhere for next decade or so. All right, and the last one that I have here with respect to the industries is healthcare, and AI is making a big dent in the healthcare industry. One of the major use cases that it's being used is predicting diseases from high resolution scans. So here you see on the left side is a scan of someone's retina. There is this disease called diabetic retinopathy, which is very common across the world. What it essentially is if a person has diabetes, they have a much higher probability of getting some issues with the retina, and that can cause blindness in the person. So usually the way to diagnose it is you take a really high resolution scan of the retina and then show it to ophthalmologists. And based on that, they'll predict whether you have high risk, low risk, or medium risk of having diabetic retinopathy. So here, this research was done by one of the Google research teams, and they took the sample, they showed it to 3 ophthalmologists, and the responses were usually, one said this is a severe case, one said this is like a mild case, and one said that there is nothing here. And when we ran this image through ML model predictions, it recommended that it predicted that it was an advanced case. They then went back and tried to talk to a lot of ophthalmologists, showed this image, and tried to do some advanced analysis of the image. And they eventually realized that this was actually an advanced case. So it's actually cases like this where machines can actually identify patterns much better than humans can ever do that. And hence AI is going to be like a huge thing in not just diabetic retinopathy, but also cancer detection and all sorts of like vision related use cases that you can think about. All right, so let's move on to the last part of the presentation. This is my favorite part here. So what is the future like with AI? So you've seen how AI is helping with a lot of these industries, but what does future entail? The first major way in which I think AI will significantly impact our lives is content generation. What I mean by that is voice, text, and video generation. So right now, if we need something, let's say if we want to curate a news, or if we want to have Shah Rukh Khan's voice, we have to sort of type the news ourselves, or we have to record Shah Rukh Khan's voice specifically over a microphone. What AI can do, and the research is almost at the level where this is possible, is it can generate sounds of a particular person by itself. You don't really need to record a particular sentence from Shah Rukh Khan. You can just generate, let's say, movie dialogues or news from, let's say, Arnab Goswami, for example, without even having him say something. Similarly, AI can start writing stories and poems and news articles and movie scripts and so on. So the generation is sort of for text and voice is going to be a big thing. I have a quick example here of a nice technology that Xinhua, I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing it right, which is a news agency in China. And they basically launched a first news anchor, and it is actually very fascinating to see. I'm just going to play the video here.
Hello, everyone. I'm an English artificial intelligence anchor. This is my very first day in Xinhua News Agency. My voice and appearance are modeled on Zhang Zhao, a real anchor with Xinhua. The development of the media industry calls for continuous innovation and deep integration with the international advanced technologies. I will work tirelessly to keep you informed as texts will be typed into my system, uninterrupted. I look forward to bringing you the brand new news experiences.
So as you can see,
hello everyone.
As you can see, it was trying to do multiple things here. One was it was generating speech from the text that was given to it. The second is it was generating the face of a particular anchor in China that he was talking about. And it kind of felt very real. This is still early stages, but I'm pretty sure that they'll get to a level where it will be hard to differentiate between real anchor and an AI generated anchor. Cool. The second area where AI is going to make a big dent, I think in next 5 to 10 years, is personal assistants and friends. We already have seen things like Alexa and Google Assistant and Siri, but I think these are going to go to like next level in next 5 years, 5 to 10 years. I'm not sure if you followed the Google I/O keynote last year, but this is an example of how Google Assistant was able to actually call a hair salon and book an appointment for women's haircut with a client. So on the left side, you see this is Google Assistant, and on the right side, you see somebody from the salon actually picking up the call. Here's the video.
How can I help you? Hi, I'm calling to book a women's haircut for a client. I'm looking for something on May 3rd. Sure, give me 1 second. Sure, what time are you looking for around? At 12 p.m. We do not have a 12 p.m. available. The closest we have to that is a 1:15. Do you have anything between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m.? Depending on what service she would like. What service is she looking for? Just a woman's haircut for now? Okay, we have a 10 o'clock. 10 a.m. is fine. Okay, what's your first name? The first name is Lisa. Okay, perfect. So I will see Lisa at 10 o'clock on May 3rd. Okay, great. Thanks. Great. Have a great day. Bye.
So as you can see, it was sort of a really fascinating conversation. And I don't know if you noticed around like first, I think 15 or 20 seconds where the AI actually says, and it got a lot of cheer. That is sort of a really, really hard thing to get into AI. So we are actually getting there where AI can speak very fluently with humans, and potentially we could pass during test in next like few years, if not decade. Cool. The other area related to virtual assistants and virtual assistants and friend is people will start having a lot of virtual friends. An example here is an app called Replica. That's its name here, and it's basically a well-being sort of an app where you can just chat with Replica about general things. It'll ask you about your emotions. If you're stressed, you can just come and talk up to Replica about it, and it is actually surprisingly good. I've tried this one, and I'm actually really impressed with Replica. So more and more of these apps and these technologies will start coming in next 5 to 10 years. And I wouldn't be surprised if like people have multiple virtual friends with different personalities that they can talk to. And obviously the challenge here is that the human to human conversation will significantly go down. Yeah, we'll probably have to wait and see how that turns out. Cool. The third area where I think AI is going to be huge and is going to disrupt the way we live today is robo companions. So by that I mean that we have robots today in our houses. So you may have like Roombas, which are like cleaning robots who will go around the house and clean the house. You have washing machines, which are in a way robots. They don't move. They just like clean clothes at a particular place. But what I mean by robo companions here is they'll be like much more mobile and much more interactive robots. So one super cool example that I've seen about this is a pet called Aibo. It's basically a robotic dog, and it's made a lot of headlines in the last few years. Let's look at a quick video about Aibo. So yeah, I can totally imagine what you guys might be feeling if you're seeing this for the first time. I was totally fascinated and surprised, and had a bunch of different kinds of emotions after I saw this. This is a sort of, I think, second or third generation of Aibo, and it's actually super cool. So if you like kind of go and pet it on the top of the head, it'll kind of react in different ways, and if you kind of massage it, it'll react in different ways. So this technology will kind of improve over a period of time, and you'll see like more pets and more like house cleaning robots and things like that within homes in next few years. If you want to buy it, by the way, this is like $300, I think, right now. Very expensive, I think. Cool. The other way the robots will start helping humans is by working with humans side by side. This is already happening. So you may already know about like robotic arms that are installed in, let's say, huge car factories and things like that. But the revolution that is happening right now is where the companies are basically creating development kits which you can take and kind of customize it for your needs. So if you have like a small assembly line, you can customize your robots around how they will actually interact with human beings, how much interaction you want with them, how much voice capabilities, how much vision capabilities they should have, so on and so forth. So this thing is actually getting huge as well. If you want to check out, Vio Robotics is actually doing some cool stuff in this area. Cool. And the last one, and probably the most interesting one here, intelligence augmentation. So there are a lot of predictions of how AI will affect us in, let's say, by 2040, 2045, 2050. So probably like in 20 to 30 to 40 years. But my take is that AI is going to get super intelligent, and we will have something called an artificial general intelligence, which can basically do a lot of tasks together. So it will sort of be human level intelligent, if not more intelligent. The issues right now is that the ML models or the AIs that we have can do very specific tasks. So you can train an AI or an ML model to identify cancer. You can train an ML model to detect objects. You can train an ML model for speech recognition. But these are sort of three very different ML models. To achieve human level intelligence, we need to have like a single big model which can do a lot of these tasks at once. And that is a very complicated task, by the way, and researchers across the world are working on it. If we are able to crack that, and it will probably happen in next 1 to 2 decades, I think. Now imagine if that happens, we will have an AI that is super intelligent, and at some point of time it will surpass the intelligence of humans. So to keep up with the AI, what essentially we'll have to do is we'll have to add artificial intelligence to human brains. So it can be invasive, like we see in sci-fi movies, where you kind of embed the chips and connect it to neurons somehow, which I don't think anybody knows the answer to at this point of time. It could be just external, where you have like headsets or like some sort of cap or something like that which you wear, and it kind of directly transmits information into your nerves. So it could be either of those. I think it will probably be both of those, and based on the predictions from some of the most famous futurists, I think this will probably happen somewhere between 2040 and 2050. We will start having more intelligence, more artificial intelligence into our brains. So just to give you a sense of how things are going to look like in next 50 to 100 years. When we had census in 1970s, census is the questionnaire that the government asks us to fill to get a sense of how people are doing in the country, for example. The census of 1970s was like, oh, how many people are in the rooms are in the house. The census of 2100 is going to look something like this. People will not care about houses or rooms or anything like that. People will care about how much artificial intelligence you have in you. So this is like one of the questions that will be there. So the options there could be like, hey, I don't have any implants, I'm like a true human being. I have limb implants only. I have intelligence augmentation, which is external only. And then finally, I have embedded intelligence, which is basically chips inside your brain or heart or somewhere, and you're basically a cyborg. So I think we are moving in that direction, and we should see significant advances in this field of invasive and non-invasive technology even in probably next 20 to 30 years. And I think we may like it and do it. For example, it may be our choice. Or if you don't like it, I think it will be a necessity, because if somebody doesn't like to do it, then they'll just be like left behind, everybody becoming super intelligent, and then somebody is not getting artificial intelligence in their brains, and they'll just sort of be left behind. So people will do it either by choice or by necessity, but they will have to do it. Yeah, so this brings me to the end of my presentation. I think the last bit of wisdom or thoughts that I want to leave you with is I think from 1975 to 1995, the focus of the world and the technology industry in general was pick a service and make it digital. So if you remember the railway system, for example, in India, we moved to not online, like digital tracking at that point of time, used this huge mainframes and everything was stored in the computers, was started to store in computers. From 95 to 2013, 2015 was the era where everybody was trying to pick a service and make it online. So was it shopping that Amazon did, took it online, or was it Uber where they took like cab service stuff and then took it online? And I think in the next 15 to 20 years, it's going to be primarily AI. And it has already started, I think, since 2013, 2014, that time frame. Pick a service and improve it using AI. And I think this is going to be the recipe for next 10,000 startups in the world. Yeah, so I think at this point of time, I probably have convinced you that AI is the driving force of our era, and it is changing our everyday things. So if you are interested in, if this talk inspired you, or if you found any useful information, I would request you to start exploring AI and thinking through problems and how you could use AI and ML to solve those problems. Cool. Yeah, that's it from me. And